G'day and welcome to the Ball Boys AFL Fantasy Podcast. Today we're reviewing a big round 21 and talking particularly about a key injury that's going to shape the footy finals and our fantasy finals. Bogs and flogs, trade targets, let's go!
Just done it from nowhere. Hoisted the goal from inside the centre. Sheed from the boundary. Dusty. Now Kenny. Petrarca. Oh, wow. How good is that? The legend becomes immortal.
G'day and welcome again to the Ball Boys AFL Fantasy Podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Casey, and you can find me on Twitter at Ball Boys Fantasy, joined by Luke Frodison, coach of the Mighty Oxlongs. How are you, mate?
Struggling to muster the energy.
No. We're so close, mate. 3 rounds to go.
We're so close. It feels like so far. I think your weekend really shapes up when you have to watch, your team not show up. And then that contributes to one of the most popular VC options of the week going 150 and you're not on there. We talked about this off air before, but it's hard to then get around the footy for the rest of the weekend when you start.
It does put a dampener on your weekend and it just sort of sets you up on the back foot going, okay, this whole footy thing is just, it's not for me this weekend because, that first game was a hard watch.
But from both those perspectives, like what the fuck was Richmond doing?
Oh, mate, must-win game. Must-win game. We're out of finals now. We're done.
Well, you made the point. You made the point. We probably would have put the VC on Bond if we hadn't known he was playing West Coast.
Yeah, exactly. If it was flipped the other way with Merritt, then of course I would have put the VC on him. But I thought Richmond would actually show up and compete.
Yeah.
Do something, but
it was tough.
Alas, it didn't happen. And
I mean, to be fair as well, I think we and potentially a lot of other people as well, with Merritt putting up a 128, got out of jail a little bit. Like if that's a 105 or 110, and you're having to cop that, we probably got to jail a lot. Well, we lose 20 points. So
not the worst thing, but still just that first game just set up the weekend at least for the people who joined us in not VCing Bonds. But managed to catch a few games on Sunday at least, and obviously lots of news for us to go over with a key injury, like we said, with Mr. Dacos. But we'll cover that later. Let's start with the good old reliable.
And the winner of the Norm Smith Medal.
You're an embarrassment to what you do, mate. You're an embarrassment.
Plenty of embarrassments, plenty of players that just absolutely crushed it as well. Best on ground, Marcus Bontempelli, as we talked about before, 151 points. He smells the Brownlow, and probably even more so now. But just absolutely crushed it. 3 goals, I think he scored as well. 32 touches, 6 marks, 9 tackles, and just untouched really by Richmond for most of that game. First half, I sort of thought, okay, he's going well. 56 points, I think, from memory. And then the second half, third quarter, 65 points. Final quarter, another 34 points. So he's had a 100-point second half.
We turned it off 3/4 time.
I did. I think I'm surprised I lasted that long because that third quarter was a beating,
wasn't it? I know. Of course, we never want to wish injuries on anyone, but I reckon Bont might have creamed his jeans when he saw what happened to Dacos on the weekend because I think he might have been thinking, "Brownlow Bont, I'm back, baby, let's go."
I mean, he was even kind of closing the gap a little bit the last couple of weeks.
It felt that way. It's going to be one of the more captivating Brownlow counts, I think, in recent memory. I know I'll be watching very closely on the night.
I reckon he can get him for sure.
Yeah.
But Dacos obviously has put on a sizable, I would say a decent lead up to this point. Who's our flog?
The flog for this game goes without saying. It's us, isn't it? I mean, we missed the 150 VC.
The big boys, you're basically saying. The big in a kind way to myself.
I mean, I feel just as part invested in the big boys as what you are. So we're the flogs. We had that, potential first game of the round, great option, and we maybe got a bit fancy there. But
if I had known he was, versing the Richmond Eagles, then for sure I would have gone there. But anyway, I was hoping for like a little 110, 115, but not to be. I think that's his biggest score of the year. So yeah. Kudos to Bont and anyone who VC'd him. He was a very good option, obviously. Next game, Essendon versus West Coast. Another easy one here. Best on ground, Zach Merritt.
Yep.
saved us from too embarrassing of a weekend with the VC score on here, 128, and got there, I think, pretty late as well. I think he had a good last quarter or a second half as well to sort of save his score. Yeah, 43-point last quarter. So obviously put up some decent points. When the game was close, actually, there was a lot of tweets, actually, that...
that probably helped his...
What's the number one? Is it Harley Reid? Is that the guy that I'm thinking about? Yeah, Harley Reid was at North Melbourne Roo for 20 seconds whilst...
there was Langford, I think, that kicked the goal, wasn't it?
So, yeah, that was probably, that tightness in the last quarter there probably helped Zaki Merritt.
The flog from this game comes from the selection, and we probably mentioned this at the live show on Friday, but it's just the Essendon selection panel for picking Sardis and just ruining him for us for next year. He's already an ex-y rookie as it stands, but if he goes on and plays the next 4 games, he's going to be one of those guys that you umming and ahhing about whether you pick him next year. So that's the floggery, I think, from this game. Yeah,
scored 65 and was all over the ground. Played a decent enough role for a first gamer.
Yeah.
Don't think he had any actual CBAs, but definitely was pushing. Actually, let me double check that. I don't think he had any CBAs, but yeah, definitely pushed up the ground and obviously was playing a somewhat midfield friendly role. So
now this next game, this Bog is a guy that, despite what his name suggests, really stood up.
Yep. I don't want to reveal who it is now because I don't want to give you that satisfaction.
Do it.
But Matt Crouch, he had a massive game, 120. Some people were considering him. I think one of the questions
Some people did trade him in.
Yeah, was Matt Crouch, and obviously he was very cheap, but came in 120 points, 31 touches, 7 tackles, just looked really good. Kicked a goal in that as well. Was the highest scoring midfielder for the Crows. Props to anyone who traded Matt Crouch in because paid off massively with a cheap salary.
Such an interesting one too, like one that I don't know if you can pick. Even listening to Adelaide fans speak about when he initially got reselected back in that team, people were going, "Oh, what are we doing? Like, why are we going back here? This isn't the future." And then they've obviously seen something in the last couple of weeks, and to be fair, he's been dominating.
I think they are still really pushing for that finals. Like they're still in the mix, and
It's an interesting one. We'll talk about him a bit more later. And floggery in this game goes to a bloke who scored mid-80s, but when you own a bloke like Noah Anderson this time of year, you can't be copping mid-80s. You need 110 to 120.
He can't get out of my team either. There's always something more pressing.
You're even cashed up this week. You can't get out of your team.
I thought this was going to be the week that I was going to trade him out, but then bloody Nick Dacos. I still could, to be fair. So we'll have a chat about that later. But yes, obviously Nat's not going to get done in our midfield. Despite the fact that he is a bit of a gun player, fantasy not getting it done.
What about those Hawks taking on the
Hawks
Pies?
versus Collingwood, best on ground. James Sicily, the sick dog, just went bananas, and I think he even had a quiet last quarter to settle for 160 points, which I think is his second highest score of the year. Yeah, only 30 points in the last quarter, but just went absolutely berserk in this game. First quarter went off with a bang, 51 point. An enormous amount of marks, 19 marks. Only the one tackle, but yeah, when you get 19 marks, that's a massive, massive score waiting to happen. So
that's huge. Yeah. And I, to be honest, it was obviously terrible to watch being a non-owner, but for people that have owned Sicily for sort of 3 weeks and maybe he's been, I'll say, underperforming based on what people expected, I think it was good to see those people who've been sticking with him get a big score.
Yeah.
With the flog here, I don't actually know where to go because I was sitting there watching a little bit of that game thinking, Sicily's absolutely dominating you at one end and it's showing on the scoreboard, and Hawthorn are showing you how to tag the best player on the opposition out with McGuinness just absolutely gloving Dacos. I just thought maybe maybe in the Collingwood coach's box we have to look at doing something here. Now, I mean, to be fair, who are we to critique what Collingwood are doing? They're absolutely flying at the moment, but I just couldn't work out what was going on there. It seemed really obvious to me.
Very strange game. Obviously, Collingwood lost to Hawthorn, who's down more the other end of the ladder. But I'll give you a hand here. I'll give Finn McGuinness the flog award just for tagging our boy. And
but he's so inconsequential, it doesn't really matter. He could
well,
have
some people
one.
jumped off, and some people might have actually put him on the emergency on the bench.
Lupe Fiasco.
Lupe Fiasco. Which I mean, Lupe, come on, where was the flag here, mate?
That's on me, guys. That's on me.
We needed you in our time of need, but so some people would have got a big leg up there. Imagine if you jumped at the shadow and you traded Nick Dacos to Sicily.
Genius.
123 points, just like that. And you're still going to have to trade up your sleeve, and mate, you're ahead of the game.
You'd be back in hat territory.
Oh, 100%. If I had done that move, that would have...
Shit.
I'd be bouncing off the walls starting to this podcast, but obviously I didn't do it.
I was thinking about doing that move, mate, last week. I think I was telling you, and you told me not to.
Yeah, you talked me out of it. No, I actually can't claim that I ever thought of doing that. Nah, and obviously with Tuke Miller in my team, I needed to trade him out. But yeah, some people did talk about it. I mean, I think we mentioned, could you trade him? And we kind of quickly shot it down.
We certainly weren't on it, but if you did it, fuck yeah, go you.
That's a victory lap right there.
For sure.
Geelong versus Port Adelaide. Best on ground. My boy, Zach Butters, he's back. 130, kicked a goal in that score as well.
Yeah.
Just good to see him scoring like the premium mid, which I have sort of said he's going to be for a little while now, but he's finally showed it, and I'm glad that I've held strong and kept him there.
Yeah, it's good to see. I couldn't find much floggery from this game, but I just put down the floggers Ryan Myers because I'm like, What are you?
What a waste.
I just don't understand what Myers is.
I mean, Geelong's just such a nothing team, really.
Yeah, and I mean, he's wasted some juicy fantasy scores just on no one. No one is going to pick him, and probably no one's going to pick him next year. It's just a strange one. So
yeah, whenever I see like a good matchup, and then I wonder, who's playing this matchup this week? Oh, it's Geelong. Oh shit, nothing there. I've just got to scroll past. But
so sorry, Grind. It's probably not warranted, but I've put just the flog.
Someone's got to get it, Grind. You're a bit. GWS versus Sydney. I'm going to give the best on ground to Tom Green here. Had a couple of options, few options. Errol obviously put his hand up as well, but just coming back from injury, Tom Green just went, yep. Boys, here I am, back 141 points, 38 touches, 10 tackles. Also played an extremely high time on ground. So the history, especially this season, has been managing players' times when they come back from injury. But Tom Green said, nah, fuck that, hold my beer, let's go. We're on, boys, get on my back. And unfortunately, they couldn't get the win. But big shout out to Tom Green after a lot of us have traded him out.
Now, this flog, I find the mentality.
I know where you're going here.
Well, I find the mentality of this really interesting because I traded this guy out 2 weeks ago, and so I was sort of not really hurt by what happened on the weekend.
But if you trade him out this week.
Yeah, exactly. If you trade out Callum Mills this week, and then you have to watch him go and do what you've been expecting him to do for 5 weeks.
Yeah.
Callum Mills
Different story.
120 or best part of it.
Yeah.
You're the flog because especially for those people out there that traded him this week and then he's put a 120.
You'd be shitty. Yeah.
It sucks. It hurts. In this luxury season, when you make trades and you go back and look at it over the weekend and think, fuck, I actually lost points from my trades this week.
That's the worst feeling.
It's terrible.
But look, as someone who traded him out 3 weeks ago and he put a 98 on my head, which was his best score to date from that point of view, he followed up with a 58. So
we'll see.
Hopefully, for those who did trade him out, a bad score is on the way around. And, if you still have him in your team, you at least got kissed with this score. So, yes, that's a good one there. North Melbourne versus Melbourne in this game. Best on ground. I'm giving it to the Jack Zeeble retirement tour because this thing looks like it's in full swing. He was doing his best Sicily impersonation. And, 138, 12 marks on the game as well. So he was the highest scorer by a fair way. We'll talk a bit about him later, but best on ground in this game from a fantasy point of view.
Well, somebody who potentially did not benefit from the Jack Zeeble retirement tour was Harry Sheasel, and he did. He's our flog for the game. I've got some sort of interesting discussion points for him as well that I'd like to run by, but we'll save that for later on, hey?
Yeah, for sure. St Kilda versus Carlton, best on ground. Nick Newman, who came up a bit in the week leading up to it, obviously had the Saints matchup and delivered. Was the second highest scorer of this game, 35 touches, 13 marks, so a lot of heavy mark games around for these defenders.
Yeah,
so
everyone's waxing.
Yeah, in a week where we're going to have to talk a lot of defenders, so he is deserving of the best on ground. Flog, this one makes me smile a little bit, but probably not for yourself.
Carlton are a hard matchup.
Yeah, they're a red, mate.
Not for fucking Crouch.
No.
But Jack Steele.
Well, Crouch did this in 3 quarters. He did
Yeah,
his
he
126 and 3/4.
What the fuck's going on, Jack Steele? So both Crouch and Steele had effectively nothing in the last quarter.
I think Steele actually went negative in the final quarter. He went -2. I'm just going to confirm that.
It's hard to...
-2. He had 1 tackle and obviously a free against as well.
I'll be honest, it is hard to get cranky at a bloke looking at what he's done over the last 4 weeks for your teams, but that's not acceptable.
No, that's absolutely terrible.
Horrible. That is dog meat. I think I had. I don't even want to fucking bring me team up here. It was garbage on the weekend.
Yeah,
absolutely garbage.
Yeah, that's a stinger right there. Obviously, you can kind of hide behind the fact that he is popular. A lot of people have traded him in the last several weeks, but yeah, that's especially late on a Sunday. That sucks. Freo versus Brisbane. Best on ground. I'm going to give a shout out here to Luke Jackson, who absolutely crushed it against the injured ruck department in Brisbane. Obviously, you had the Big O who was out, but he put up a massive game. Kicked a goal, 24 touches, 6 tackles, 5 marks, 44 hitouts, just spread across the entire stat line. So a few people might have traded him in, and if you held him on, he obviously repaid the faith. But also, shout out to our guy, Hayden Young, for winding back the clock. And
he's our guy.
He's our guy. I think,
tried and tested.
Just want to confirm, I'm just going to double check this, but I think that might be his biggest score for the year, 119 points.
He had a big score in round 1. What do you say? Round
1? He's picked his round 1 score by 1 point. So 118, this was his 119. Yeah, biggest round.
We were all fucking head wobbling after round 1.
Love our
we've
guy.
picked Hayden Young. He's a gun.
Yeah, sorry. But no, shout out to Hayden Young.
Yeah, getting the CBAs. And I think there's a few Freo fans that we've seen calling for, like, let's get him in there. Let's just see what he can do. Because could he potentially go into that mould of, like, we've seen a lot of good halfbacks go into the midfield and have success. So I'm talking Laird, I'm talking Mills, these kind of guys. Like, could he go to
Dawson? Yeah, like he's got the beautiful kick like Dawson does.
Oh, we're going to pick Hayden Young at the start of next year.
Welcome to the team. Well, we're going to lose Doherty. We're going to lose Dacos.
We have no defenders. We have no forwards.
We have nothing. So maybe. Well, don't rule it out. All right, who's the flog for this game?
Dunks was an underperforming premium at 80. You're not gonna cop, like we said before.
No, and especially if you traded him in.
Again, I'm being sympathetic here to other people, because there were quite a few people who traded in Luke Jackson a couple of weeks ago, and also a few people who I think traded off him either this week or...
I think our good friend Bindi traded him out this week.
Yeah, and, either this week or last week, and to have that... So it's vindication, isn't it, for why you made the move initially?
I mean, you'd rather the points.
Of course. But it's tough how fantasy can play like that.
And he's got a very good matchup next week as well, so we'll talk a bit about that.
That's rough.
Coming up. So that will do it for our bogs and flogs. Let's talk about... No. Sign here.
And the winner of the Norm Smith medal.
You're an embarrassment to what you do, mate. You're an embarrassment.
Leave the buttons to me, mate. You worry about the monitor over here.
Sorry, mate. Okay, well, tell me where we're going next.
All right, we're going to the Infinite Wealth, the Content Creators Cup, because we've got a big matchup this week, Luke. It's the prelim finals, and I'm still in there. So I'm coming up against Louis from the Pod.
Yep.
He's on a massive winning streak. He's coming in hot now, and I think he would have picked me last week if we'd gone together head to head. So yeah, I'm a little nervous coming up against Louis.
What were his trades last week? Who's he sort of bought in? That's
a very good question. I'm not as well researched.
Okay, sorry, I put you on the spot there.
I believe he might have brought in a Parish and I don't know, someone. Maybe it was just a rookie downgrade. I'm not too sure. But
now, are you going to look to your sole league now? You want to win the CCC. So
I'm putting a little bit of foot in both, but I'm probably more. I'm less optimistic that I'm going to get a hat at 380, whatever I am at the moment. So, yes, the Content Creators Cup, where is all the glory at the moment. So
he owns Sicily. So I'm assuming you'll go straight across to Sicily at this stage.
Well, here's the thing. Don't reveal. He might be listening to this podcast right now. I
don't think he's listening to this podcast.
Well, I have to sort of see how things are going. I believe so Collingwood play the first game as well, so you've got to make that trade immediately. So look, there might be a bit of gamesmanship, seeing how things go at the start of the week, see how much I'm already ahead with my uniques.
So you'll be listening closely to the pod this week.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Hopefully
get any intel you
he'll
can.
be freely just sort of letting us know what he's doing there, Louis. But yeah, that's the big matchup going on there over the Content Creators Cup.
Very nice, very nice.
But if you haven't already, go and check out infinitewealth.com.au/AFL Fantasy and check it out.
Beautiful. Should we talk some trade targets?
Before we do that...
Oh, shit. Sorry, I changed the graphic. Oh, no. Quick.
Just
back
taking
to the live graphic. Sorry.
Taking the show by, your own sim there. But let's go through some news. Not too...
Why did I go to trade targets? We haven't even done shopping block yet.
You just go and...
I should probably try and read the run sheet.
We all know who does the run sheet now.
Correct.
But yes,
it's Mitchell. We all knew that before.
I think we did. Okay, a couple of news things. Jacob Hopper concussed.
Yep.
Didn't want to come off the field, just by the way. Just was determined to stay out there. Ruled out. So fingers crossed. At least Richmond's done for the season, but hopefully Taranto can go back to his 120 scoring ways. Yep. Bailey Williams was given a 1-match suspension. I think they are challenging that. We won't find that out until tomorrow, but this could positively affect Luke Jackson, who's obviously just towed up Brisbane's ruck department. He's coming up against the easiest matchup in West Coast already, and they're losing Bailey Williams, so... Looking really, really juicy for a 1-week play. Absolutely. But the big news here... Nick Dacos, he's got a hairline fracture in his tibial plateau.
His hairline's great, I would have
thought. Yeah, it is a great hairline. Some would say...
Better than mine.
Or some would say Mitch Casey-like.
Oh, they wouldn't.
But yes, so hairline fracture in his knee. He's out for about 6 weeks. So essentially, we're going to rule him out for the rest of the home-away season. So
what did you write it there, Mr.
His tibial
EP?
plateau. It's his knee. All right, let's his leg. But so he's out for the fantasy season.
Yes.
So he's a must trade, obviously.
Yep.
We'll get into some options for him later, but yeah, that's just that's a game changer because he's 100% owned across the board. Everyone has him.
Yeah.
So yeah, very interesting to see where we go from here.
I think we're going to talk about it a bit later on, aren't we? But there's kind of two trains of thought. I think you can.
Yeah. For sure. Just touched on before, Tom Green came back with a bang. No game time management, 91% time on ground, had the highest CBAs of the team. So
is he a pod guy you could go to, you reckon?
Potentially could. Obviously came out 141, and obviously a lot of people, he's had ceiling games in the past.
Yeah.
So very unique. Mills had a low CBA game still for those who did trade him out. So the role was still not great.
Pay attention to the role. But it is hard to still trade a guy out after a 120, isn't it?
It is 100%.
Do I do that?
Little minor one here. Well, not minor in terms of the injury, but little sneaky one that might affect our teams. But Harrison Petty has got a Liz Frank injury, which is a foot injury, which could be a very bad one.
Who's Frank?
Liz Frank. So I'd imagine he's ruled out for the rest of the season. So does this mean Brodie Grundy comes back for the Melbourne Demons?
This I find intriguing to watch because if Petty, who they put in this mould of the forward, and he played really well last week, if he goes down and they've told Grundy, go work on your forward craft, and Grundy doesn't come back in.
He's not back
That's like the ultimate insult of like...
That's a slap to the face right there.
We've lost a forward, but we still don't want you. So
I mean, I think they've still got some other... I'm forgetting who... Ben Brown? He wasn't in the team, was he? So
no,
he come back
wasn't.
Instead.
I recall something on the commentary that he is still having a niggling
Might
injury.
have had an injury or something.
I'm not across that.
If I was to hazard a guess, on Monday evening, I think Grundy is back this week. So if you have Gawn in your team, maybe just build in some trade plans there as an option. Because if Grundy's back in... Look, I've said this before. I don't think he's going to come back and dominate the ruck and split it 50-50. Yeah. But it does, I think, just limit the ceiling of Max Gawn a decent amount.
I think Melbourne... I don't know if I've got the Dacos move to make and then I'm looking at potentially having to make a Gawn move... It would depend where my team's at. If I'm absolutely happy with everything else going on in my team, then I'd probably look at that. But if I've still got guys like, I was going to say, guys like Sheasel, who there might be question marks on now, I'd probably look at moving him before
Callum Mills or something like that.
Yeah, something like that before Gawn, because I just think that what they've seen from him in that solo ruck has been so impressive that even with Grundy coming back, I'd almost be saying, hey, bro, in terms of Brodie Grundy, like...
Hey, bro, D.
Well done. I'd be saying just get your forward, bro.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah. Don't come into this run.
Yeah. Don't disturb what we've got going on up in
This
here.
is a pretty good thing here.
Yeah.
No, I agree. But it will be interesting to sort of see how it all turns out.
Yeah.
Very interesting to see. And then the last one here. Oh, sorry. Two more things.
Yeah.
Jack Zeeble. Now, there's been a lot of talk about his, retirement parade and like how it's gonna. But in your opinion, I'll get your thoughts. But
he might decide not to retire after this.
Is this something?
I'm brilliant.
Is this something that legitimately elevates his appeal to you from a fantasy trade-in target? Like, is this now we're going to see what he did on the weekend for the next 3 weeks here, or?
Yeah.
What are you thinking here for Jack Zeeble?
Well, let's sort of be honest with where the season's at. So you've got people who are genuinely fighting for hats, who are making decisions through that lens.
Yeah.
You've got people who are going well in leagues who are making decisions through that lens, and you've got people who just want to fucking swing for the fences.
Yeah,
who are in
just having a crack,
really don't
try
care.
something new.
And that's essentially me. So for me,
you're going there, are you?
Well, I think I'm more likely this week. I still don't have Sicily. I'm more likely than going Dacos to Sicily. I'm more likely to go Dacos to Zeeble so I can get an upgrade on the other end. Because what the fuck do I stand to lose?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
No, I agree. I understand. Yeah, I understand that frame of mind. But I think from like if I'm having a little bit more of like a weighing up the pros and cons and the probabilities of him doing well. If this was like a 1 or maybe 2 week play, I love it. I think it's great. And if I knew he was going to play this week and that was just a 1 week thing that I was trying to do, go for it. I think that's amazing. But over 3 weeks in a team where, like,
Who have they got?
Who do they have? They've got Essendon, then they've got Richmond, and then they've got Gold Coast the last 3 weeks. So, but a team like North Melbourne, like, what are you actually getting from Jack Zeeble doing this moving forward? He's literally announced he's retired. If it's one game at his last game, I mean, does he even play out these last 3 games, or does he have like one more game left in, or 2 more games? Like, is it confirmed he's going to play these 3 games to finish out the season? And do you think that's the case? Because a lot of times players don't often play all the games.
They may not, and he may not. As the week evolves, we're going to get more information. We're going to listen to press conferences and stuff, so stuff may be revealed. But it's just, I guess it just comes down to what do you want as a coach in your team? What do you want to get out of the last 4 weeks of the fantasy season, 3 weeks of the fantasy season?
Yeah.
3? So, if you don't have to front up to a podcast and I just swing for the fences. I'm fucking outside the 3,000 too. I'm a
have you
kicker.
slipped? Oh, no. Okay, hold on.
This week.
We'll get you back in. Jack Zeeble, he'll do it for you. And the last one here, Hayden Young, the midfielder, similar kind of question. Is this move something that you think elevates him in the eyes of a trade-in target as a fantasy option? If he's going to be... Well, first of all, do you think this is going to be something that sticks for the next 3 rounds? Or do you think that it's just, once-off kind of thing?
All I'll say is I've always advocated for Hayden Young.
Yeah, of course. I've heard this.
Always been a big Hayden Young fan. I think the role sticks.
Yeah.
Because Freo don't have anything to gain from this season, so I think that they'll be going, okay, well, let's see how this transpires. Is this something we go to next year? Does that mean I'm going to be bending over myself backwards to trade him in? There's probably too many scars there.
Yeah,
and he's not. Of course, he would be an ultra pod, but I don't think he's going to score at the ceiling scores that will get you that kind of value for your pod. There's other poddier guys that have a bigger ceiling. Yeah,
the ceiling. Yes. Well, we haven't seen it quite yet.
Yeah.
Which is always a nervous thing when you're trading in someone who's a point of difference.
Let's say if that was a kind of role change that we saw around round 3, round 4 or something, that would be something we'd be
jump on
a bloody rush. Yeah. So
for sure.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to the chopping block here. All right, chopping block.
Sorry, God, I'm so slow on the graphic
That's
today.
all right. So obviously Nick Dacos has got to go. A lot of people have him, but also with their other trade, you might have got a bit of cash, or maybe you want to fix him up by going Nick Dacos down, some of these guys up. So we'll run through them. A lot of them are kind of similar names we talked about the last few weeks as well.
Yep.
So Caleb Daniel, Harry Sheasel, Darcy Cameron, all sort of your forward options or defender options. How do you think you prioritise those three?
Well, Caleb Daniel I traded out last week, so he got like a 90 or something, but he had 2 goals in the first quarter to get that. That's just not happening. So I think he's definitely giving him the chop suey. I want to talk to you more, and selfishly, of course, about Harry Sheasel, because I know you didn't catch much of this game, and I'd like to get other people's opinion on it as well. For me, it didn't feel exactly like all of the ball that Zeeble was getting was necessarily stopping Sheasel from getting the ball. Maybe there's like a slight element of that, but it just felt like Sheasel was just having a really almost game. Like he would sort of get to a spot for a short 45, and they just wouldn't quite kick there. There was even one there where he did get the kick, and then there was a 50-metre penalty paid, so it went back to the original guy. He marched up the field. There was a couple of fumbles. It just felt like a really almost kind of game. And that gives me hesitation. If he played forward because Zeeble played back, then it'd be like, see ya.
Yeah. If it was a role change, clearly something like that.
But it just seemed to be one of the strange ones. I found it hard to get a read on. So maybe North Melbourne fans out there, if there are any, let us know what your thoughts were there. What are your sort of first indications there?
I do think he is someone that can go. I do think he's like just a peg below some of those like premium options in the defenders or the forward line. Maybe he's not your number one priority. For example, I probably would get rid of a Caleb Daniel before him. Just because I probably don't like the role for Caleb Daniel as much. He's playing more time on the wing in the last couple of weeks, which I don't like. But Harry Sheasel, the thing that's always scared me about trading him back in is just the volatility in his role. Because the team he's playing for, North Melbourne, they're going nowhere, right? So they're going to be doing lots of experimenting at the end of the season. They've got another coach change. Obviously, Clarko's back in. So there's just a lot of unknowns going on there. And if I was in contention especially, that would make me extremely nervous, having to rely on a rookie, a first-year player whose role's volatile, who's playing with a guy who's on his retirement tour and taking all the kick-ins possible. The coaches are changing throughout the season. So there's a few factors in there that just add up to uncertainty for me. And especially if I'm like in a must-win finals matchup, or if I'm in a chase for the hat or something like that, he is someone that does make me fairly nervous watching him week to week. So for that reason, I think he can go. But yeah, I'd probably get rid of Caleb Daniel, for example, before that, just because I don't like his wing role as much. But he is probably up there when I'm considering guys to trade out. As is this next guy, Darcy Cameron, who he was the sole ruck on the weekend, still only managed an 80. And I believe he's got Geelong. They got Geelong this week?
Yeah,
Geelong this week on the Friday nights. Look, it's not a bad matchup for Ruckman, but we just haven't seen any ceiling scores from Darcy Cameron at all this year. His highest score was 109 versus West Coast back in round 12, and he's only gone over 100 2 other times this season. So, and all of them below 110. So I just don't think you can have those guys that haven't demonstrated ceiling at this point of the year. So I do think that Darcy Cameron is definitely someone that still needs to go out of your side. Let's talk the mids. So Callum Mills, despite his 117, I think you still chop him.
A couple of goals, I think, to get to that score too.
Did he? I'll have to double check that. But yeah, he was obviously, I think he had a handful of CBAs, but nothing more than what we want to. No goals, but just had a lot of marks, a few tackles there. So
something new.
Well, that was a couple of weeks ago he had those goals. But talk to me, and this I'm going to self-indulge myself here.
Yeah.
Lachie Neale.
Self-indulge yourself.
Yeah, that didn't sound too right, did it? But Lachie Neale versus Noah Anderson. Who are you trading out first out of these two? Because this is the decision I need to make this
Who
week.
they play. Tell me who they play.
So Lachie Neale versus Adelaide.
Okay.
And Neale versus Adelaide.
Yep.
And Anderson versus Sydney. So both with tough matchups.
Yeah.
Neale plays at home. Anderson plays away. Does Neale get the keys tag? Did they tag on the weekend?
That's
Adelaide?
Yeah. Oh, I'm not sure whether Adelaide tagged.
I don't think they did from memory, because I think obviously Matt Crouch is in there a bit more now. And they came up against Gold Coast. But obviously Adelaide kept Noah Anderson to a lower score than Neale did this week.
Yeah. Neale does like playing at the Gabba, I would say. That's the way we've been seeing him flip a coin.
Yeah, true,
you know
right?
What I mean? Like, if you're umming and ahhing.
I was trading Neale before Took's suspension. And then obviously I had to trade Took last week.
Yeah, we
so
thought that was going to be good for Anderson.
yeah, and Anderson's still come out and sucked.
Have a look at my dog shit midfield from the weekend.
Oh, that is kind of gross.
That sucks.
3 tons. Oh, yuck.
Only 2 guys over 110 when you've got essentially a team full of premiums.
At least you captain one of them. But yeah, and it was a lower one. But yeah, I think at this stage I lean Lockie Neal still just because of like
that tag. I thought that tag is going to be coming for the rest of the year.
Yeah, like he's shown some like 60s, whereas Anderson just on the floor seems a little bit higher. Ceiling maybe a little bit higher too. So he's at least good for an 85. Like that's as low as we've seen him play.
Neil could give you that stinker.
Neil could give you that real stinker.
Well, check your matchup with Louis. What is does Louis have both of those guys?
Oh, okay. Let's have a look. I don't think he's got Anderson.
This is the most selfish segment.
Let's have a look. No, he's got Neil, but he doesn't have Anderson. So
based on his team, do you reckon
he'll probably look to trade Neil? I would have to think, he's got a JJ there, so he might be stuck with Neil. Okay. We'll see. But I lean Neil slightly over Anderson at this stage. But is there any other sort of popular mids out there that you think we could also be looking to trade? I've got this next guy here.
Yeah.
But Jack Steele, how reactionary can we be?
I don't think we can. That has to be an anomaly. That was so bad that it has to be an anomaly. And also let's put the lens over it. Carlton have been one of the hardest teams for midfielders to score against.
Hardest.
I know. You could look at that and say, well, how the fuck did Crouch score 130 in 3 quarters? Yes, I get that, but that's potentially a bit out of the box as well.
Yeah, they got dominated in that last quarter too.
And if you think about Carlton being hard to score against, well, if one of your midfielders has 130 points in 3 quarters. And that team is hard to score against. There's not many other points to go around.
True. Yeah, exactly. So yeah.
I think that unless you'd have to be in a pretty uber luxury position, I think, to be moving off Steele.
Yeah, they've got the Richmond Eagles this week, so
150 incoming.
Under the roof. Yeah, put a C on him. I agree. I don't think he's going to be a guy that many of us will be trading out. Is there anyone else like a LDU or...
LDU, we talked about a little bit about this before, but LDU score, and if you watch the game, I think he might have had 4 free kicks against.
Yes.
Just fact check me on that. And
3, I think I saw, but yeah.
Okay, well, at least... I felt like 3, but then at least 2 of those free kicks were like holding the ball decisions, which means it could be
it's
a
always like a 6-7 point
swing because he doesn't
get
a disposal, plus he loses 3 points.
Yep.
He also gave away a tackle free kick, so there's a 7-point swing.
Yep.
So suddenly his score
is... chuck on 13 points on his score and it doesn't look so bad, eh?
Suddenly you're going, that's,
95, yep.
So.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think he, again, pretty luxury move. He's got Essendon and Richmond the next 2 weeks, which is still a decent matchup. So I don't think any of those guys are urgent trade outs, but again, could be at that luxury point of the season where if you wanted to get to someone with better matchups, I think those ones are okay to move on.
What are your thoughts on Will Day? If Will Day, I guess the fact of it now is everyone's going from Dacos to someone, isn't it? So
yeah, well, we're going to talk about him, and I'm going to throw him up as a trade-in target because he's he's doing really well. Last 2 games, 2 tons, 3 tons in his last 4.
It's interesting to change that mentality from looking at a bloke there for so many weeks and thinking, I'm going to move off you, and then he pulls out a couple of good scores. And you're like, hang on,
do I want to?
You just got in that flow, but
I mean, he's averaging 96 for the season. Like, I think he's
been one of the picks of the season.
Yeah, 100%.
So. He and Bontempelli, they're the only 2 blokes that we started with that we still have. And Rowan Marshall.
Rowan Marshall, yeah.
And probably some of those forwards as well.
Errol, Tim, Rosie. Yeah, all those boys. But yeah, I think, Day doesn't really count because he traded him out, got him back in. But yes, Dawson for me. All right, let's move on to the next one here, talking about some trade targets. Now, we'll spend a good chunk of this one talking about who are we replacing Nick Dacos with. Now, if you don't have him, do you think the best option is as simple, if you can, go to James Sicily?
If you don't have... if you don't have Sicily. I talked about the fact that I sort of see there being 2 ways that people will go.
So talk that out a bit more.
So if you don't have Sicily, the option going to Sicily, or let's say you have Sicily but you don't have Doherty. Maybe it's going to Doherty. So essentially it is trading in like the premium that you're missing or that you think is the top of that line. I think, most people now have Dawson and Sinclair's pretty as well.
So to get to Sicily, it now costs you nearly 60,000 to get there because Dacos obviously slid to 70k on the weekend. So
it sucks. It sucks because you're not going to get an upgrade anywhere. You're going to have to do like a little downgrade cash grab on your bench to get that, and that sucks because you would have been banking on I'm going to get off my last mid price or my last underperforming premium or whatever it is. But I just think are there other options? The other way that I think people will go, and this is more of that one where people are like, what do I have to lose? Maybe I should try something. That's where you're looking to maybe make a downgrade. So there's a few options to downgrade to.
Yep.
It depends how much cash you want to try and generate, how much cash you already have in the bank for what you want to do on the other end. And I see this one as being the option that I'm most likely to go to, and it will just be a matter of who I go down to and how much cash I need to make my upgrade on the other end.
But say you were someone who was, up the top competing for a hat.
Yeah.
Like, do these options we're about to go into make you feel more nervous if you don't have a Sicily? Or
oh, definitely. If I'm looking for that, like if I'm trying to hang on to hat territory or I'm
play
in
it safe,
then I think sure, I'm going the safe option for sure.
He's got the Dogs this week, and he put up 150, I think, versing them last year. And it's a good matchup for defenders still. So
I think this is more in that if you've resigned yourself to the fact that you're probably outside of hat territory, and then also maybe you're not really caring too much about your league matchups, then why not have a swing?
I don't want to say that this is only for that, like these trade options, but I just do think that these next few guys we're going to talk about do come with a large element of risk. So talking about the next guy we've touched on before, but Jack Zeeble.
Yep.
And I'm also going to throw in another guy here, which I think deserves a lot of mention, and it is a downgrade target, so you do make a bit of money, in Jaden Short. Now, of those two options, the two J's, Jack Zeeble, Jaden Short, who do you prefer out of these boys?
So you make about 300k going to Zeeble.
Yep, so 605,000.
Whereas Shorty, you make
150 or so.
150. So I think most teams are at the point where the downgrade to Short and getting 150k will probably get you
it probably is enough
upgrade that you want, like if it's a Sheasel up or something like that.
That's enough to get like a Neil to a Laird or something like that. Like
I feel like just on my first sort of thoughts on this particular one, I feel like the Zeeble option is the one that has the potential higher ceiling and could go absolutely gloriously. But it also has the most likelihood of going tits up. Maybe he doesn't play the rest of the games. Maybe they just go, this is not where we're going, Zeeble. You're going to be the sub. He's been the sub a few times. So, but I don't necessarily know whether Jaden Short has the 150 ceiling that we've seen from Zeeble on occasion.
Yes. Well, I agree from like the player point of view, but look at his next two games. He's got St Kilda this week, under the roof at Marvel, and then he's got North Melbourne the week after at the MCG. And
with Richmond play the style of footy that makes those juicy matchups, Bart? Do you know what I'm trying
I get what you're saying, like that sort of waxing kind of.
They kind of play that same run and gun footy regardless of who they're playing, and that's the only thing that I think. When I look at Richmond, I don't think, oh, wow, Richmond have got that good matchup, because it doesn't really matter who they play. They just they keep the ball moving forward.
I get what you're saying. And in terms of like Short so far this season, he's had one game where he's gone over 10 marks, one game where he's had 9. In that game, it was against Gold Coast Suns, and that was that disgusting game that we watched, I think, a few weeks ago that we ended up losing. So I think that they're trying not to. But I think sometimes the Saints also force teams to play that way because they set up so well defensively. So
Shorty's, you just got it there. So Shorty's start to the year after an injury interrupted the first few, let's call it out. So he goes 117, 123, 102, 113. If you get that from him in the next, if you get that kind of run,
you're pretty happy. Yeah, because you've made money and you can do something else with that trade. Yeah. So I think over the next 2 weeks, he is definitely a serious consideration. Yep. We kind of talked about it a little bit last time before the game on Friday on our live show, and I think Minimonk was all for it as well, who was on the show there.
We scored a 95 in a game where they got absolutely pantsed.
He's the second highest scorer for Richmond, only behind Tim Taranto, who was only 4 points ahead of him. Yeah. So he's obviously someone that, didn't need too much time to warm up, 85% time on ground, so he looks like he's good to go.
Yeah.
So in my personal view, I actually prefer short over Zeeble because I think the upside maybe isn't quite as high, but it's relatively close in terms of ceiling. But I think the floor is way higher than a Jack Zeeble. Like Zeeble's floor is on the floor. It's down the bottom because he could be the sub. He could be subbed out. Like how old is he? He could ping a calf anytime. I know Shorts obviously had some injuries, but Zeeble isn't the picture of health. So
I just don't want to end up a few dollars short of my upgrade.
Very good. Very, very good. Let's talk about some other guys here, some other pods. Well, somewhat pods, but Will Day, we mentioned before, some people still have him. Some people have traded him out or never got him back in. Is he an option if you don't have him? Say you've got all the big five or the other big four or whatever. Is Will Day an option if you've got like a Dawson, Sicily, Doherty, Sinclair, Stewart? Is Will Day the guy that you trade back in who's gone 3 tons out of his last 4?
How much cash does that make you?
So 818, so that'll make you about 80K or so, just under 80K.
I think I'm answering this correctly in saying if that gets you where you want to go on the other end, like would that be fair to say? Let's say you were thinking about going Will Day and you ended up 30K short of getting Rory Laird or something like that, you would then go...
Who scores more? Let me put it this way. Who scores more the next 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Short, Will Day.
What are Will Day's matchups?
Will Day's got West Coast... Western Bulldogs and then Melbourne.
I think probably Shorty.
I'd probably go short too. I'd have more confidence or at least hope that the upside is there.
Makes some more cash too.
So I probably lean that way as well, and he's definitely a more unique option.
Yeah.
I don't think Will Day's a guy that you want to sort of necessarily... You have to match the other people that have him. He's not someone that really scares you too much going up against him. Ooh, Will Day.
I'm more scared of the night.
Oh, wow. You've had some zingers today, mate.
Yeah, I'm on it, eh?
He's on it.
That's good.
But this next guy might scare you a little bit here. Luke Ryan, if you don't have him. But I think he had a pretty poor score on the weekend with going up against Brisbane, who have given up a few points to defenders. But he's got West Coast this week. Showed his lowest score in a while with 76 points. But we do know that at any point he can go 140 plus. Yeah. Is he someone that you jump on over some of those other guys mentioned before in Short or Zeeble, just as a point of difference?
I still, you're not making as much cash to him, are you, as those two?
No, I think he's a little bit more. In fact,
I don't.
You're only making 30K.
I don't think that's going to, unless people have got cash in the bag, I don't think that's going to be enough to be a really great selling point.
It really is just a point of difference play, and for that reason.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a decent one because he does have the ceiling, but yeah, I think that might be a little bit of a more niche market here.
Yep.
Let's talk about some more outside of the box players. There's Wangani Miller, Nick Newman, our boy Hayden Young. Any of those guys tickle your fancy there at all?
No to Hayden Young. Wangani Miller has been an absolute tear, except that last game, 74, and again, the mentality of it's very hard to look at a guy that's just popped a 74 and go, that's my guy.
Carlton comes up against Richmond this week.
Yeah.
But then Geelong and then Brisbane.
Nick Newman's a guy that's been getting a bit of traction on Twitter.
Yes.
So what are your thoughts there? Because a few people are really pumping up his tyres off some big scores.
My initial knee-jerk reaction is like, oh, yeah, he versus Saints. Obviously, he scored well. But if you look previous to that as well, he's put up 4 tons in his last 5. And the only one he went below 100 was 93 against West Coast. So he has the runs on the board. His previous 5 average is basically as high as any other defender.
Yeah.
Come up against Melbourne versus Gold Coast. Look, I don't mind it. I prefer some of the other options in Short a little bit more.
I think Shorty could easily score on par with Nick Newman over the next 3 weeks, and you only really make about 50K going to Newman, I think it is.
Yeah, 838,000. So he's about 60,000 more than a Short. But again, I'm not as worried about price, but again, if it does change your other move, then it could be a difference maker.
The only reason you're looking to go a down from Dacos option really is to try and get an upgrade on the other end, because if you're going up from him, that's like your upgrade,
or something like that.
And that's it. So I think if you're going down and you go to Newman, but you can't do anything with your other trade, well, you may as well have just gone up.
Yeah.
Unless you already had everyone that you wanted.
Yeah, I want to have a look at the Demons in terms of their giving points up to defenders. They are a pretty average team for defenders, and then he runs into Gold Coast again, who are a decent matchup for defenders. So look, the run isn't too bad, at least over these next couple at the MCG and then on the Gold Coast. The Gold Coast can sometimes be a tough one for defenders if it is a bit dewy up here as well.
Nah, he's gone.
Jesus, man.
No, he's not coaching him either.
You're trying real hard here.
Trying, succeeding.
Succeeding.
I'm on fire today.
But he plays a 2-10 game, so it shouldn't
First
be
day
that
back
dewy.
at work, you see.
Right then, yeah, he's got all the kids and all the jokes there. Last one I'll throw at you on the defenders. We talked about defenders a lot, but it is the topic of the week. Bailey Dale as an option for the Bulldogs there. He's probably the guy that I'm not too excited about just because of a few of the defenders coming and going in this team. But he has gone 107, 137 in his last two. But prior to that, he was putting up a few games of sub-80 scores. So, but he does have Hawthorn and West Coast these next two games.
The matchups are good, but I feel like if you haven't been sold on one of the previous options, then what are you waiting for?
Yeah. I think I agree. I'm not too confident in Bailey Dale.
But again, like we haven't been seeing them well at all. So
no.
Listen to what we say and then do the
I think
opposite.
there's actually a lot of decent options here. My favourite of all of these ones are Sicily, if you want to go a bit more vanilla.
Sure.
I like the Jaden Short option as well. And then a pod for pod's sake, probably a Nick Newman as the third guy there.
Okay, so you got Newman over Zeeble.
Yeah, Zeeble just scares the shit out of me. I could be wrong, and I'd be happy to do it for a 1
If you were
week
me,
play.
If you were me,
If I were you, I'd go Jaden Short and just ride the Richmond train. Why not? I mean, if it gets you the trade on the other side.
riding the Richmond train was so fun on Friday night.
That's so true.
Choo-choo.
Give you something to
All
to
fucking
enjoy.
board.
Fair
Useless.
call. Yeah, I mean, you could go. Look, if the difference was the ticket on the other end, then I'd go Zeeble. But if it's
too
the
much
same,
cash to matter, isn't it?
yeah. All right, let's move on to
We're going
the
to talk
other.
about more trade targets. We should have had Nick Dacos' head on that graphic because all we've talked about is Nick Dacos' replacement so far.
Well, yeah, it's a topic of the week. Let's go through some of the other positions here. The mids, if we had a mid to trade out, I've got a few players I want to list to you. Rory Laird, he put up the low ton on the weekend.
Yeah.
Happy to pull the trigger and get him back in now? Or?
Yeah, and this, again, a little selfishly, I want to talk about a few of these guys because I'm looking most likely to do that downgrade cash grab and then through DPP turn Sheasel into a premium mid. And I think I can pretty much get to...
Anyone?
I think I can get to all these guys. I can get to Laird, even going to Shorty, I think I can get to Laird. So we got Laird, we got Sarong, we got Parrish, we got Libba, we got Treloar, we got Green, we got them all in there.
Yep.
I feel like where I'm erring towards is Laird, but Sarong was so good to me earlier in the year. And then Parrish has
got West Coast this week.
Yeah, well, Parrish has North Melbourne this week, doesn't he?
Yes.
So,
North Melbourne actually have been giving up more points compared to West Coast recently.
Yeah.
They are the number one easiest matchup over the last 10 games, with West Coast being second.
Were you disappointed by Parrish this week, given that he was probably a pretty highly sought-after guy?
I wasn't disappointed. I was hoping for more. I was hoping for 120, 130, but... Look, you can't be too upset with a mid one team,
well, especially when a lot of mids went sub 100 this week. So
yeah, so I was pretty happy with that, and I always thought that the North Melbourne matchup was probably the more juicy of the two.
Yeah.
And obviously they struggled to get the win against West Coast as well. So maybe that's a wake up call for them, and then this week they come up with a bit more fire.
So those three there, Laird, Sarong, Parrish, where are you going? I kind of like, it's a bit of a cop-out, but I almost think, can you really go wrong with any of them? But
you
we
can't,
need to...
but you got to sort of pull the trigger. I think Rory Laird is the safest. In the last 3 games, he also has a West Coast matchup. So it's not this matchup, but he does have it in his next 3.
Yeah. Sydney play a contested brand. You'd hope that
they do. And Brisbane have actually been giving up a lot of points for midfielders as well. So they are still a positive matchup. So I think of all those guys, Laird is the safest and probably the best player amongst them in terms of fantasy pedigree.
Yeah.
What about Libba? Libba's a guy that
good, eh?
we haven't given enough credit to. And
you've been confident too, like Ellie.
Yeah, Ellie's team, she's going very well and probably better if you ask her, if it wasn't for me, I'm giving her some advice. She's been talking about Libba this whole season And yeah,
we've been poo-pooing it,
and
shit.
he's just keeps getting it done. And I think the Bulldogs' run coming up are very, very good. So I think he is definitely someone that deserves a mention. I might have him second on this list. Comes up against Hawthorn, West Coast, Geelong in his last 3 games. And yeah, he's on the back of 400s, all of them except for one being over 110, and that one that wasn't 110 was 109. So he's got some ceiling. He just gets it done. Yeah, I think he's definitely someone, if you want a pod, he's as unique as they come and a great run. The stars do seem to be aligning for Libba.
So you'd go Laird, then Libba in terms of how you'd order this.
Would you go Libba over Treloar?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yes.
With that same run? Treloar just worries me with his body. And
you cop a hamstring at any point in time.
Yeah, he's had a few 130s this year, but probably not as consistent as Libba has been.
Yeah, I think Treloar has that ability to have a ceiling game, but it really makes you pause when you trade in a guy who, if they get injured, you can cop a few eyesalts. Like, there's not anything you can lean on back there. Yeah, so I'd go Libba there as well.
And of this list, I think in terms of uniqueness, Parrish would actually be the most owned of these guys. Sarong's probably next.
It'll be Laird after this week.
And then I think Laird would be
after this week.
Probably, after this week he'd be up there. But these last 3, Libba, Treloar, Tom Green, they'll be all very unique.
Yes.
And I think of those really unique guys, Libba's my most favourite. So for that reason, he's probably up, like I said, second as a guy who's very lowly owned.
No, I think I agree with that. And then just really quickly, trade targets, ruck forwards. People going back to Luke Jackson.
Luke Jackson, I think it's a play. It's a 1 week play. This guy just put up a 150 and comes up against the easiest matchup for rucks. And
but didn't we say that when he versed Sydney 2 weeks ago?
He got an 88, but he did it with 43 hitouts. So he's got the same amount of hitouts in his last game, but he's put on an extra 70 points to his previous game. He just got the ball a bit more. And
was the Sydney game at the SCG, whereas the Brisbane game we know was at Optus?
That's a good question. Let me scroll back and find that one. It was
it was at
Optus.
Okay.
The game was obviously a bit closer against Brisbane, but whereas you'd think they'd get over West Coast.
Food for thought.
But he's cheap, man. He's cheap. So if you wanted to maybe do the opposite to what you're talking about and do a downgrade from a forward to get Dacos up to Sicily, that could be your play to do it that way. If you weren't confident those other defenders that we were talking about before, if you really want a Sicily, Luke Jackson might be an option to get. How much does he actually cost here?
I think I'm
$734. So you could do someone like dare I say, to Tim Taranto down to him.
Loose as they come.
But Darcy Cameron down and make a bit of money.
I could do Sheezel because I want to move on him anyway. But
Sheezel. Actually, can't do Darcy Cameron, but one of those guys.
Yeah. Well, do you have more confidence in Luke Jackson to score more over the next 3 weeks, or Jaden Short, or Jack?
Both have great matchups coming up. That's a good question. That's a good way to phrase it.
Luke Jackson's role has more potential for ceiling, I think.
Yeah, and he's shown it.
He's at the ball, but
I think Short's been more consistent and a higher floor. That's a really good question, actually.
That's tough.
That's a tough one.
That'll be something I'll be pondering this week.
I think, so Luke Jackson, who does he have after this week? So if we just had because obviously he's got a great 1 week matchup. Then he goes up against Port Adelaide. Actually, no, I'm going Luke Jackson here. Port Adelaide with Lysette down, with Vicentini.
But then finishes with a tough one against Reeves.
You can trade him out by then. But I'm going Luke Jackson. Luke, West Coast into Vicent, who's their ruckman if Bailey Williams isn't there? I can't even think of him.
Yeah, me either.
The dream run. So I'd probably go him over Short. You're changing your tune now. I'm making you think a little bit.
No, but last time you made me think I fucking traded Doherty instead of VC and Bolton getting Parrish.
Yeah, well. You win some, you lose some, mate. You know, just because I was wrong last 3 times doesn't mean I'll be wrong this time. We'll see. But let's head over to just a few questions here. I think we've just got a handful from the community. We might have already touched on most of them as well. So, best option for Nick Dacos if he was in your midfield. We still talked about those midfield options before, but
Laird,
Libba,
Sarong. Sarong didn't disappoint when I owned him.
No,
that was one of those
It's a great watch.
It's a feel-good story.
He goes hard.
the
You love to watch him. Who would you trade out along with Dacos this week out of Cogs, Neil, and Flanders?
Neil.
I think I'm Neil there too.
Yeah,
I think the other two are close to the top in their line.
Yeah. Weird to say Neil before Flanders, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Is Jackson the play against the Williamless Ruck this week and then up against Byzantini? I think yes.
We just gave that a bit of airtime, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. So yes, I do agree. I'll get you. This is a good question here from Hewitt's Herd. Will Adelaide move anyone out of the CBAs?
Will Adelaide. I've heard of Will Day. I haven't heard of Will Adelaide.
I'm going to move right past that. Will they move anyone out of the CBAs just to facilitate a Keys tag on Neil? So this is the question.
The Adelaide CBAs are busy, aren't they?
Yeah, they've been toit.
Got Grouch in there. We've got Lairdy. Just to I mean, it would astound me that blueprint has been.
They've won the last. Did they win the week before? They won this weekend. Yeah, they beat Port, obviously, in the showdown. Yeah, so they've done well with the current mix in there.
What do we know? Did Freo send Hayden Young to Lachie Neale? Because we just didn't bother watching footy because we suck. No,
I was a bit salty that weekend. No, I'm not sure.
We need to find that out because, let's say...
Well, he scored all right. Neil did.
Yeah, he went all right. Let's say Freo... We should probably know this. This is there for a podcast. Somebody tell us.
Someone do tell us.
But, let's say Neil got tagged by Hayden Young this week, and Freo lost that game by what?
3. It was close.
3, okay. Yeah. So you've got a blueprint where you tag Lachie Neale, you win
you're
previous
close
week.
To winning, yeah.
You tag him, you're close to winning this week.
Yeah.
Surely Adelaide are tagging him.
I think it's a strong threat. And
this is if Hayden Young tagged.
Well, I think it's a strong threat, but I also think even if he's not tagged, the midfield for the Crows has been very strong anyway. So they haven't been giving up many points. Like if we look at Gold Coast this past week, I don't think Flanders was the highest, but he didn't turn up 94. The week before up against Port Adelaide, Rosie just scraped to a 106, but Butters had a poor score. Not many good players there. So they've been restrictive, Adelaide has, the last few weeks. So
what was the question? Just will Neil get tagged this week?
Well, yeah. Is it will he get tagged? But who will be moved out of the CBAs to tag that?
Yeah.
I don't know if I can see any of Dawson, Laird, Crouch being moved out. Maybe he's just the 4th guy in there, and they run with just those 4.
Could well be.
Could see that. That'd probably be the most likely option in my opinion. But even if they don't, I still think he's going to score poorly. I think we've covered all of these other guys that have been talked about. A few people obviously talking about Hayden Young, the man. Is he going to be the guy who we thought he could be at round 1?
Oh, just give it a shit for.
And I say yes. No, I couldn't rely on it.
So if he kept doing what he's doing for the remainder of the season, would you start with him next year? He would be pretty expensive if he kept.
The thing is, and this is encouraging for me, he had 10 tackles on the weekend. I didn't think he could do that. I thought he
was allergic to tackles.
Yeah, I didn't think he could do that. So that is encouraging. I thought he
hated A, physical contact, and B, the ball.
Yeah, so that is encouraging because I always thought the difference between a player like Hayden Young moving into the midfield versus a Dawson versus a Laird.
He couldn't tackle.
Was that those guys love a cuddle and they can get the marks, they spread. They're obviously great users, so the team wants the ball in their hands. So Hayden Young is a great user, but I didn't think he had the tackle ability that those guys had. So if he displays that over these next few games, then he's definitely an option next year to start with him.
Even a broken clock's right twice a day. So
we were a year too early.
We've got a few of those. Bailey Smith
is going off next year.
Bailey Smith needs to get traded.
He's getting traded and he's going off. Book it right here, right now. All right, we better get off before we start talking any more shit here. But thank you guys for tuning in, and make sure you guys give this video a big thumbs up. If you want a bit of a switch up and to listen to some fantasy basketball content, head over to the YouTube or podcast for Ball Boys Fantasy Basketball and check that one out and subscribe if you haven't already. But otherwise, we'll catch you guys on Friday for our live show, talk some captains and big boys. And until then, we'll see you later. Bye.